Now let's take you back to the markets in Europe as we examine the developments in the region and how they affect investors' sentiment. Avi Aguedas is DWTV Channels TV correspondent. It joins me live from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Hello, Avi. Welcome to the program. How are the markets reacting to the ECB's bond buying program for the month of April?
Well, there has been a lot of criticism to the policies of the European Central Bank, and this last Sunday we saw a very important article with an interview of one of the members of Germany's banking sector criticizing the actions of the European Central Bank heavily, saying that this is all a big risk for the whole of the financial system. The amount of money that is being pumped into the economy is certainly not bringing the results that it should have been bringing a long time ago. The inflation rate is still very far away from what the ECB wants it to be. So all in all, many criticize the risk that this poses if there is a financial crisis, a true financial crisis in the near future, because these measures that are taken by the European Central Bank are supposed to help the countries in case of a financial crisis that could destabilize the economy. But at this point, we cannot talk about a global financial crisis. So the reason to actually implement all these instruments is not really that much justified. And those are the latest criticisms that we've heard. All in all, investors, of course, do like the fact that there is money being pumped into the economy. But in the end, the big question is what would happen if something really goes wrong in the worldwide economy at the moment.
Now, Avi, the first quarter earnings season starts today on Wall Street with Alcoa. Some analysts say the results may be the worst since 2009.
Yes, that is definitely a very big possibility. Remember that all commodities are suffering due to the economic slowdown in China and the overall slowdown of many of the emerging economies. So that is quite likely that we will see some very bad numbers for Alcoa. All in all, investors do want to compare the figures of all performing companies at this moment in order to confirm or deny the fears that the economic slowdown in China especially has hit the economies in the West. So far, we've seen quite solid numbers in many of the indicators of the performance in the United States especially, but Alcoa is definitely a company that is suffering from the lower prices. Here in Germany, we are seeing the same problems in the steel industry, especially today. There were some protests announced, so all in all, we are having a very hard time at the commodity sector in general.
Now, the German steelworkers are a nationwide protest today. What are the main concerns? Are investors concerned as well?
Well, as mentioned, the steel industry has suffered from the low commodity prices lately, and what the workers are concerned about is the way the global market has been developing and what it poses as a risk for the workforce, because these steel companies in Germany, and all of them, are suffering the consequences of the fact that China has slowed down its economic growth, and especially the fact that China is also producing a lot of steel. Now, from the point of view of the steel workers unions, China is not competing fairly. China is basically dumping the prices and selling the steel at a price that is below the production costs. Again, this is from the point of view of the workers' unions. So what they are requesting for the government is to intervene to make sure that the pricing is fair and that the conditions with which German companies compete against Chinese companies in the steel industry are equal. So that is one of the main concerns. Of course, this is a very difficult political battle that they have to fight, and we will see if they succeed in it. As from the point of view of investors, well, the steel companies have also lost in their market value. The companies have to rethink their strategies and be sure to acquire other markets or other competencies. But all in all, these are definitely very hard times for the German steel industry.
Thank you so much, Ave. We do appreciate your time with us on the show. Avi Aguedas is a DWTV Channels TV correspondent from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. And Nigeria's Finance Minister, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, says the government is doing all it can to cut down on recurrent expenditure while also increasing spending on important sectors of the economy. Mrs. Adeosun stated this during an interview with Channels Television at the weekend?
We set out to start really what we call the fiscal housekeeping. And we've been very, very determined around that. And that involves two things. That involves raising our revenues, and that involves reducing our expenditure. And it's a continuous program that we're very committed to. We're already seeing some very positive signs around revenue, especially from many of our agencies and our ministries, and we're holding direct meetings with them to map out how we increase our non-oil revenues and maximise the revenues that come into government. And then on the expenditure side, as you know, we've made considerable progress around just reducing our recurrent expenditure, particularly in the area of salaries and pensions and overheads with the efficiency unit. Even up to recently, I think, sending out a directive around class of travel that restricts class of travel, economy class for most public officers in the course of their public duties, which I think is right, considering where Nigeria is at the moment. We all need to tighten our belts. The public out there are tightening their belts, and I think government has to show the right leadership. I mean, the ghost worker issue is a good one, because, you know, what does the reduction in ghost workers, or I don't like calling them ghost workers, this payroll fraud, do? It releases money to employ the people we need. So you saw an announcement around, we've taken 23,000 off the payroll, but then 2 weeks later, police got approval to take 10,000 new policemen. Those are people that we need. Those are essential services that have a direct impact on the lives of Nigerians. So we're not just cutting costs for the sake of cutting costs. In fact, if anything, our budget is expansionary. We're actually spending more, but we're spending on the right things. We're spending on the things that need to grow the economy. A ghost worker doesn't do anything for your economy. A ghost worker, it's fraud. That's really what it is. It doesn't do anything for your economy. So we're not, it's not austerity, we're not cutting back, we're just redirecting the spend to make sure that there's impact. The business community are telling us that it's tough, and we know that it's tough, and we're very mindful of the fact that it's tough. And what we're telling them is that we are trying to reposition this economy. And something that is already moving, to redirect it is very difficult, because you have to keep it moving and move it in a different direction. We are telling the business community, and I engaged extensively with them today and showed them the statistics that show that really for the last 10 years, our GDP has been in decline. And at the same time, our debt has been rising. And that tells you that we've been borrowing to spend on things that are not effective, that are not bringing growth. So GDP over the last 10 years is down, but debt is up. So that tells you that you're borrowing on things that are not growing your economy. And we are saying we need to move this economy in a completely different direction. We cannot afford to continue spending on the things we're spending on. We cannot afford, for example, a situation where we spent 18 billion naira last year on roads for the whole of the federal government, but we spent 64 billion travelling. Travelling does not grow your economy. Roads allow businesses to flourish, allow industrialization, stops the amount of time that people spend on the road getting to work. So we need to just pivot, and I keep using this word, pivot means to actually redirect this economy and take it in a different direction. What we've seen over the last 10 years was growth, but it was masking a lot of insecurities and vulnerabilities. Unemployment is rising. 63% of our population are very young, they're under 25. If we don't get this economy to a state where it creates jobs for them, then we really will not have much to say in future. So what bothers me is that there's a lot of work to do. But that also encourages me, because we have a plan. We're really about implementation. You see, Nigeria doesn't need policy. We've had policies for the last years. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. What we've lacked is implementation. And so it's that implementation capacity that we need to now develop and deploy. So that, because everybody knows what to do. What we need is how to do it, and to do it quickly, so that we can deliver real change for Nigerians.
Nigeria's Finance Minister there, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun. Now let's track activities at the FMDQ OTC market as Femi Akinyemi, a fixed income trader with Access Bank, joins me to take a look at how the market is faring at the moment. Welcome, Femi, to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, what is the comparison between the opening fixed income market yields and current yields?
Well, the fixed income market has been pretty quiet opening the week. For the bond side, what we've seen is a turnover of just about 2 billion so far, and then market has been very soft, very weak, in the sense that we've seen a slight increase in yield by an average of 5 basis points. not so much happening in the bonds market. For the treasury bills market, what we've seen is some interest on the short and the medium tenor bills. That's bills trading around 30 to 90 days. So we saw a slight drop in rates by about 5 basis points on those buckets. However, after the announcement of the OMO auction, 40 billion OMO auction by the CBN this morning on the November bill rather, 40 billion of the November bill, what we saw was treasury bills around that bucket, that's October bills and December bills, trending up slightly by about 5 basis points. But generally, it's been a very quiet day.
What is your observation and expectation for the rest of the trading day?
Well, we expect markets to close quiet, and going into the week, we expect to see improvement in market activity. But generally, we don't expect to see so much because we have just a few minutes to the end of trading as I speak.
Now, what is your projection in terms of market liquidity?
CBN stance is tightening, and that's very clear from the series of OMO auctions that have been conducted in the past few weeks. Although they've tried to manage the rate, but we've seen that they are holding on to their policy to keep a very tight stance. So we expect that liquidity should drop. We expect yield to go up, especially with the with the bond auction. A primary market auction that's supposed to take place on Wednesday, where they'll be offering about 110 billion. So we expect liquidity in the system to decline. Despite a maturity of about 70 billion treasury bills coming into the system on Thursday, we still expect a net decline in liquidity and an increase in yield as we progress in the week.
Just before you go, Femi, what is your short-term outlook for the markets?
Okay, so like I said, short-term outlook is an increase in rates across board in the T-bills and the bonds markets. We expect the rates to go up in reaction or in response to the liquidity in the system. And we expect that CBN would continue their OMO auction in trying to keep up with their tightening stance. So generally, the short-term outlook is an increase in yield, both in the bonds and the treasury bills market.
Femi Akiyemi, fixed income trader with Access Bank. Thank you so much for your time. Now, the Egyptian government says it is working on luring back millions of tourists after a series of terrorist attacks. The Minister of Tourism, Yahya Rashid, said the ancient land of the pyramids and Red Sea resorts was determined to secure a strong recovery.
Egypt is confident of luring back millions of foreign visitors and putting a smile on their faces, according to its new tourism minister. This is despite heavy first-quarter losses and setbacks, including a bomb that brought down a Russian passenger plane. The minister, Yahya Rashid, said the ancient land of pyramids and Red Sea resorts was determined to secure a strong recovery. Amongst past events that have wiped the smile off the face of Egyptian tourism was the Russian plane that crashed in Sunin last October. All 224 people on board died. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi called the crash an act of terrorism. Islamic State said it planted a bomb on board. Egypt's tourism revenue took a heavy hit after that, and tourist numbers fell by 40% in the first quarter of 2016 compared with the same period last year. Rashid said the country aims to attract 12 million tourists at the end of 2017 with a 6-point plan.
No one have interest to hide anything from anybody. You know, the Egyptian government works hand in hand with all the other governments. The relationship between Egypt and Russia is so strong that would not allow any speculation inside. The relationship between the Egyptian government and the Italian government is lifetime. You know, Italian used to live in Egypt. I have Italian friends that they say to me, we're more Egyptian than Italian. You know, that's what it is. I want to get that smile that you're smiling into the faces of everybody.
The torture of Italian graduate student Giulio Regina, whose body was dumped on the side of a road in February, has also hurt Egypt's image. Human rights groups say torture marks on his body, feet, a pattern that suggests Egyptian security service had killed him an allegation the government had strongly denied. Asked if Egypt would take action if it was determined that a policeman had killed Regina, as widely suspected amongst human rights groups, Rashid said, "Justice is justice." The Regina case had brought allegations of widespread police brutality in Egypt under sharper focus. Rashid said the country had dedicated itself to improving security throughout Egypt, including through airports checks on and off the tarmac.
These people have worked day and night, and I think that you need to see some of the efforts that has been made to enhance security everywhere, whether it's in the airport, whether it's in the marketplace. I mean, I'm sure you live here and you know and you understand, Egypt is safe.
More than 14.7 million tourists visited Egypt in 2010, dropping to 9.8 million in 2011.
Okay, on that note, we've come to the end of Business Incorporated. Many thanks for watching. We do appreciate your time with us. I am Bolaji Akinwale.